All right, let's talk about a really powerful idea today. It's about shifting from a life that kind of just happens to you to one you actually create on purpose. It's a framework called the entrepreneur's path. And yeah, it's all about living by design. So let's just start with a question that cuts right to the chase. I want you to think about this for a second. Are you busy or are you awake? It's so easy to be in constant motion, right? We're all running around. But the real question is all that movement actually getting you somewhere you want to go?
And that question really sets up these two different ways of living, these two different worlds. On one side, you've got by default. It's basically living on autopilot. You're just reacting to things, you feel scattered, and honestly, a lot of the time, it just feels unfulfilling. But then, there's the other side, living by design. This is where you're awake, you're intentional, and everything you do is aligned with a real sense of purpose.
So how do you make that jump from default to design? Well, that journey actually has a name. It's called the entrepreneur's path. And it's this really clear, actionable framework from a guy named Tom Pizio. We're going to break it down together, step by step. Okay, so the path kicks off with phase 1, the awakening. This is what the framework calls the call to consciousness. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's that first crucial step of snapping out of autopilot and getting some real clarity. And the whole idea behind this first phase really boils down to this. Awareness is always the starting line. I mean, think about it. You can't start a race if you don't even know you're at the starting line, right? You can't choose a new direction if you don't realize you're just drifting. So the absolute first step is always to wake up. So, okay, how do you actually do that? Well, the framework lays out 4 key actions. First, you just wake up. You have to consciously decide to stop running on autopilot. Then, you align. This means matching what you do with what you say you value. You close that gap. Next, and this one's huge, you have to let go. Release that old baggage, those limiting beliefs, whatever's holding you back. And finally, you've got to know thyself. Seriously, understanding what drives you and what drains you isn't just some fluffy self-help thing. It is the absolute foundation of being an effective leader. All right, so once you're awake and aware, you need to know where you're going. You need a North Star. And that brings us right into phase 2, the compass. This part is all about tapping into that powerful internal pull, that feeling that there's something more out there for you.
You know that feeling, that deep hunger for something more, for growth? The framework says that's not a distraction. It's your guide. That yearning, it's described as both the ache and the compass. It's the thing that points you towards what really truly matters, and it gives you the fuel to keep pushing forward.
So how do we actually use that yearning? Again, 4 actions. First, you gotta define your vision. I mean, paint a crystal clear picture of the future you want. Second, you own it, 100%. The good, the bad, it's all on you. Third, and this is a really cool concept we're about to dig into, is understanding the seasons. And finally, you have to constantly reconnect. Keep coming back to that vision to make sure your compass is still pointing true north. Okay, let's zoom in on that one for a second, this whole idea of understanding the seasons. Because just like in nature, our work, our businesses, they all move in these predictable, natural cycles.
First up, you've got planting. This is that buzz, that high-energy season for new ideas, new projects, new initiatives. Everything feels possible, It's like staring at a big, blank canvas. And then, after all that initial excitement, comes the season of growing. Now the focus changes. It's about nurturing everything you've planted. This is the grind, the real work, managing the teams, pushing the projects forward, that day in, day out consistent effort that actually makes things happen.
But after all that hard work, you get to the harvest. Yes, this is the season where you get to reap the rewards, pop the champagne, celebrate the wins, and actually take a moment to look back and see how far you've come. It's a time of abundance. And finally, there's resting. And let's be honest, this is the season that we entrepreneurs are absolutely terrible at. We just skip right over it. But it is so crucial. This is the time for reflection, for recovery, for real strategic planning. It's not just downtime, it's where you build the wisdom you need for the next planting season. So understanding those seasons really leads us perfectly into the final phase of this whole thing, the embodiment. This is about living the path. It's where you take all that awareness and that new direction and you turn it into what you do every single day. And this is such a critical point. Purpose isn't some finish line you cross one day. It's not a destination you finally arrive at. It is a daily practice. It's something you live out, moment by moment, through your presence, your intention, and your actions. Okay, so what does that look like in practice? The framework gives us 4 actions here too.
First, practice presence. Just be where your feet are. Simple, but not easy. Second, act with intention. This is how you turn being busy into making a real impact. Third, and this is a big one, you learn to trust the path. You embrace all the zigs and zags. And finally, you harvest the lessons. You build real wisdom from the good stuff and the bad.
Let's just hang on that idea for a second. Trust the path. If you're an entrepreneur or really anyone trying to build something, this is everything. It's that core belief that the failures, the pivots, all the unexpected turns, they aren't signs that you're lost, they're just part of the process. It's the faith that keeps you putting one foot in front of the other, especially when the map is totally blank.
So let's pull all of this together. Let's take a look at how these three phases, awakening, compass, embodiment, create a complete journey.
Here it is, the whole path in a nutshell. And you can see how it just flows so logically. You have to wake up first to get that awareness. That awareness then allows you to tap into your yearning, which gives you your direction. And once you have that direction, you can finally live with purpose. You can live intentionally, day in and day out.
You know, there's a quote from the source material that just ties this whole thing up perfectly. It says, "Wake up to your yearning to discover your purpose." See? It's all right there. Each phase literally unlocks the next. And that right there is the whole point. This isn't just a nice idea, it's a practical framework. It gives you the steps to stop living on autopilot and to start consciously, deliberately walking your own unique path, by design.
So, that leaves us with just one final question, and this one is for you. As you look at this framework, the awakening, the compass, the embodiment, what's the very first step you need to take on your path?